pain does not arrive without meaning. When a woman hurts you, the instinct is to focus on the event itself, the betrayal, the disrespect, the shift in her tone, the coldness that seemed to arrive overnight. But the wound is not in the event. The wound is located in what the event awakened inside you. The emotional injury points to something far deeper than the behavior of another person. It reveals the unfinished work within your own inner world. When you feel hurt, rejected, ignored, or suddenly unimportant to someone you once held close, what is actually being disturbed is your sense of identity. The mind asks questions like, why did she do this? What did I do wrong? What changed? But these questions lead you in circles because they assume that the source of pain is outside of you. It never is. The external behavior is only the trigger. The root is internal. The first task is to look within the wound without trying to escape it. This is difficult because emotional pain naturally provokes avoidance. A man will try to distract himself, bury himself in work, chase validation from others, or attempt to win back the affection he feels slipping away. All of these reactions are attempts to avoid sitting with the wound. Yet this avoidance keeps the wound alive. The pain remains because the lesson has not yet been understood. To recognize the wound is to notice not only what hurt you, but as why it hurt you. Why does her silence disturb you so deeply? Why does her withdrawal feel like an attack? Why does her indifference feel like a judgment against your worth? These reactions reveal the parts of yourself that are still dependent on external confirmation. The wound exposes expectations you formed long before this relationship. Expectations about love, closeness, acceptance, and identity. Sometimes these expectations come from childhood, from the first experiences of affection and loss. Sometimes they come from loneliness, where you gave someone a role that they were never capable of fulfilling. The wound shows you where you placed your heart, without first building a foundation to support it. Recognizing the wound also means acknowledging the emotional investment you placed in her. To be hurt means you valued her presence, her attention, her approval. But value, when given without self-awareness, transforms into vulnerability that can easily be misused or mishandled. Many men believe that love means giving everything without boundary. Yet love without self-grounding turns into dependency. And dependency always breeds suffering. There is another layer: projection. Much of what you saw in her, you did not actually see. You projected a part of your inner longing onto her. You did not just love who she was. You loved who you believed she could be. You loved the version of yourself you felt reflected in her admiration. When that admiration shifted or disappeared, it felt as if your identity was taken from you. But your identity was never hers to hold. She simply represented a mirror through which you were trying to understand yourself. This is where recognition deepens. You must separate the woman from the emotion she awakened in you. Look at her as a person with flaws, fears, contradictions, and insecurities of her own. Look at the situation not as a personal failure, but as an event revealing dynamics that were invisible when your emotions were involved. The wound is not evidence that you were unworthy. It is evidence that you gave someone the power to touch a part of you that was still unexamined. Do not interpret pain as weakness. Pain is the psyche's signal that something fundamental within you is ready to evolve. The wound is a doorway. When you examine the wound, you begin to see the truth about your emotional patterns, your fears, and your desires. You see the attachment that formed and how it shaped your responses. You notice where you abandoned your own needs to maintain connection. You notice where you ignored your intuition to preserve closeness. You notice where you tolerated disrespect because you feared loss. This recognition is not meant to produce anger. It is meant to produce understanding. Anger keeps the wound alive. Blame delays healing. The moment you stop trying to interpret her behavior as a reflection of your value, you begin to reclaim yourself. The hurt does not disappear instantly, but it changes shape. It becomes less about her and more about your inner reconstruction. The wound becomes the teacher you never knew you needed. Let the wound reveal the parts of yourself that now need your attention, your strength, your patience, your presence. Because the pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to show you the part of yourself that you must now become conscious of, so you can finally grow beyond it. There comes a moment when you realize that the pain you are experiencing is not simply about what she did, but about how deeply you allowed your sense of self to become intertwined with her. When someone has the power to hurt you, it is because you placed emotional energy into their hands. You invested your attention, your affection, your vulnerability, your hopes, and perhaps even your identity into the way she responded to you. To withdraw your emotional investment is not an act of cruelty nor a retreat from love. It is the process of reclaiming the life energy you gave away without awareness. This withdrawal begins with a shift in focus. For a long time, your attention has been turned outward, toward her behaviors, her moods, her silences, her inconsistencies. Every moment she pulled away or acted coldly, your emotions reacted. You became emotionally synchronized to her, responding like an instrument that plays whenever someone else touches it. To withdraw means to reverse the direction of your attention. Instead of watching her, you observe yourself. Instead of reacting to her actions, you examine your reactions. Her behavior can no longer be your emotional compass. Your inner state becomes your own responsibility again. Many men confuse withdrawal with avoidance. They think it means blocking, disappearing, pretending they no longer care. But true withdrawal is not about absence. It is about detaching your sense of value from her response to you. You can stand in the same room, look directly at her, and no longer be emotionally dependent on what she thinks or feels. That is real power. Distance is only useful if it helps you rebuild your inner independence. Otherwise, distance becomes just another form of running away. To withdraw your emotional investment, you must accept that the version of her you were attached to may have never truly existed. You may have held onto an idea of what the relationship could be, rather than what it actually was. You may have hoped that your loyalty, your consistency, your presence would inspire her to treat you with the same depth of care. But emotional reciprocity cannot be negotiated. It cannot be earned by effort. It is either naturally present or it is not. When you recognize this, the mind stops trying to force what cannot be controlled. Withdrawal also requires confronting the fear of losing the emotional connection. For many men, the real fear is not losing her. It is losing the version of themselves that felt seen, valued, or desired when she was affectionate. The attachment was never just to her presence. It was to the feeling of significance she temporarily awakened. But if a feeling can be taken from you, it means it never came from within you. Reclaiming your emotional investment means generating your sense of worth internally, rather than receiving it from another person's approval. To detach, you must no longer respond to emotional bait. This means when she becomes distant, you do not chase. When she returns with warmth, you do not immediately open. When she says things meant to provoke jealousy, insecurity, or desire, you do not react. The moment you stop responding to the emotional pull, the psychological power reverses. She no longer occupies the center of your internal world. Your emotions stop serving her behavior. Your energy begins returning to you. This process will feel uncomfortable at first, because your mind is used to the emotional bond, even if the bond has been painful. Humans cling not because something is good, but because it is familiar. Your nervous system became conditioned to her. Withdrawing your investment means breaking this emotional conditioning. The discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is proof that something inside you is releasing. There is also a silence that must be learned. When you withdraw, you speak less, you explain less, you justify less. You no longer try to make her understand how she hurt you or why you feel the way you do. Trying to make someone understand you is another form of emotional dependence. If she wanted to understand, she already would. Your silence becomes a form of self-respect, not silence as punishment, silence as clarity. You no longer seek validation in being heard. Slowly, a shift occurs. You start feeling your energy returning. You notice your thoughts are not circling her as often. You feel yourself standing alone, not in despair, but in a steady stillness. You rediscover your own center. You realize you do not need her reaction to feel real. You begin to feel like yourself again. This is the essence of withdrawal. It is not distance. It is self-restoration. It is the quiet reclaiming of your emotional sovereignty, where you no longer allow someone else to shape your inner state. You are no longer moved by absence nor swayed by presence. Your emotional world begins to belong to you again. Once the emotional investment has been withdrawn, a quiet emptiness appears. This emptiness is not a void to fear, it is space. Space that was once filled with expectation, attachment, longing, and emotional dependence. Many men misunderstand this stage and rush to fill the emptiness with distractions, new relationships, or external goals. But this emptiness is not a problem. It is the ground upon which your identity can finally be rebuilt without being shaped by someone else's presence. Your identity, as it existed during the relationship, was partially shaped by her. Whether you realized it or not, the way she responded to you influenced how you saw yourself. When she admired you, you felt strong. When she pulled away, you questioned yourself. When she was affectionate, you felt valued. When she became cold, you felt uncertain. Your sense of self was not stable. It shifted depending on her emotional weather. To reconstruct your inner identity means you are no longer affected by those fluctuations. You develop a self that stands independently of anyone else's approval, affection, or attention. The reconstruction begins with acknowledging that your worth was never actually lost. It was only obscured by your emotional dependence. When you gave someone the power to validate you, you also gave them the power to invalidate you. Therefore, the task now is not to become someone new, but to return to who you were before you allowed your sense of worth to be influenced by external connection. This requires honesty. Look at yourself not in terms of what she thought of you, but in terms of your own truth. Who were you when you were not trying to be loved? What did you value when you did not seek approval? What brought you energy, strength, and direction without anyone watching? These questions guide you back to the core of your being, to the self you may have forgotten while trying to be chosen. Your identity must now be strengthened from within. This happens when you begin acting not from emotional need but from intention. You speak because your words carry meaning, not because you want to be heard. You work because it fulfills your purpose, not because it distracts from pain. You grow because it aligns with your highest potential, not because you want to prove anything to anyone. The man who reconstructs himself does so quietly, without spectacle, without seeking recognition. He becomes rooted again in his own presence. As you reconstruct your identity, you will also notice how your perception of love changes. You will no longer romanticize attachment. You will no longer confuse intensity with depth. You will no longer interpret someone's hot and cold behavior as passion. You will begin to see clearly that real connection does not require suffering, uncertainty, or emotional bargaining. This clarity marks the beginning of your emotional maturity. Your heart becomes more discerning. It does not close, but it becomes selective. You no longer give access to your inner world freely. Reconstruction also means accepting the reality of who she is, without idealizing or condemning her. You do not need to see her as cruel to move on, nor do you need to see her as perfect to hold on to the past. You simply see her as a human being with her own wounds, limitations, and fears. This understanding frees you from resentment. Resentment keeps you bound to the past. Understanding frees you to build again. In rebuilding, your boundaries become natural. You no longer force them. You no longer defend them with explanations. They arise naturally from your sense of self. When your identity is strong, you do not tolerate disrespect because it does not resonate with who you are. You do not chase love because you do not feel incomplete. You do not seek approval because you already exist firmly in your own value. And this identity you are constructing is not loud. It does not need affirmation. It does not demand to be seen. It simply is. A man anchored in himself carries a presence that does not rely on expression. There is a quietness to him, a certainty, a steadiness. People feel it even when he says nothing. This presence cannot be manipulated or controlled. It cannot be taken away by abandonment or silence. It does not rise or fall according to who stays or who leaves. You are not rebuilding yourself to become stronger for her, or to show her what she lost, or to return to prove something. This reconstruction is not a performance. It is a return to your authentic self, who was never weak, only temporarily misplaced beneath the weight of emotional desire. You are finding the self who lives without needing to be defined by another's gaze. When you have recognized the wound, withdrawn your emotional investment, and begun reconstructing your identity, there comes a final transformation. It is the moment when you step back into the world, not as the man who was hurt, not as the man who tried to heal by becoming numb, but as the man who now understands himself. This return is not loud. It is not dramatic. There is no announcement. It is a quiet shift in how you exist, how you move, and how you respond. It is a presence defined not by emotion but by awareness. Most men, after being hurt, return to the world with one of two extremes. Either they close their heart completely, or they pretend nothing happened and try to resume life as before. But both approaches are reactions, not transformations. The man who closes his heart becomes emotionally rigid. The man who pretends becomes fragile. Controlled presence is different. It is not a defense. It is a state of being where you are open but not exposed, compassionate but not dependent, present but not attached. Controlled presence means you no longer chase emotional highs. You no longer seek approval. You no longer interpret someone's attention as a sign of your worth. You have learned how to belong to yourself, and from that place, you interact with the world without losing your center. When a woman shows interest, you do not rush to mold yourself to fit her expectations. When someone withdraws, you do not panic or seek explanation. Your identity does not shift according to external stimulus. The man who returns in this state carries something rare: a calm strength. A grounded man does not need to prove anything. His presence speaks for him. His silence speaks for him. His decisions are quiet but firm. He no longer negotiates with disrespect. He no longer entertains ambiguity. He no longer attaches his dignity to the outcome of relationships. He simply lives with clarity. This controlled presence is not born from bitterness. It does not come from deciding that love is dangerous or that vulnerability is foolish. It comes from understanding that the heart must be held in one's own hands before it is ever given to another. You now know that connection without self-respect becomes entanglement. You now know that love without boundaries becomes dependency. You now know that you cannot love someone in a way that compensates for the emptiness within yourself. Controlled presence means you are whole enough to choose connection, not chase it. This stage also changes how you respond to the woman who once hurt you. If she returns, you do not try to punish her or prove your growth. You simply see her clearly. You see what was real and what was projection. You see what you needed from her that you have now found within yourself. If the connection was based on your emotional vulnerability rather than mutual depth, you will sense it immediately. If the connection was meaningful but misaligned, you will accept it without resentment. You no longer react. You observe. If she attempts to regain the emotional hold she once had, she will find that the access point is gone. Not because you closed your heart, but because your heart is now rooted in yourself. She cannot influence what she no longer controls. This is not power over her. It is power within yourself. Controlled presence also changes your interactions with others. You stop explaining yourself. You stop oversharing. You no longer tell your story to be understood. You no longer seek others to validate your healing. You simply live in a way that reflects your new inner structure. Your boundaries, standards, and emotional clarity speak louder than words. Your life becomes your message. There will be people drawn to this new presence. Some will be inspired by it. Others will feel threatened by it. Some will respect it. Others will try to test it. You respond to all of them with the same inner stillness. You do not chase validation, nor do you chase conflict. You no longer engage in emotional games because your worth is not at stake. Your focus is not on being chosen. Your focus is on choosing consciously. This is the stage where maturity takes form. The man who returns to the world with controlled presence does not seek to conquer others. He seeks to master himself. And mastery is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is the steady knowing that no one outside of you holds the key to your peace, your direction, your purpose, or your identity. You return to the world not hardened but defined, not closed but whole, not desperate for connection, but ready to recognize it when it is real. You began this journey believing the pain came from her, believing the hurt was a wound inflicted from the outside. But now you see what has always been true. The pain pointed to something within you that needed to be understood, reclaimed, and rebuilt. She did not create your weakness. She revealed where your inner foundation was incomplete. And in revealing it, she unknowingly offered you a doorway into your own evolution. You learned to recognize the wound, not as failure, but as a message. A sign of where your identity had become tangled in hope, memory, or attachment. You learned to withdraw your emotional investment, not with bitterness, not with coldness, but with clarity. You took back the energy you once placed in seeking validation or closeness where your spirit was not truly seen. Then you began the quiet work of reconstruction, the rebuilding of your sense of self, not from reaction, not to prove anything, but to return to the man who exists independent of affection, rejection, approval, or abandonment. The man who stands on his own ground. And now, as you re-enter the world, you do so with a presence that is steady, deliberate, and unshakable. You are no longer moved by unpredictability, emotional distance, or sudden warmth. You no longer interpret love as something to earn or chase. You no longer hand your worth to another to be measured. You walk with a calm that cannot be manipulated, a strength that does not need to be declared, a heart that remains open, but no longer desperate. This is not about winning. It is not about proving. It is not about being above her or anyone else. It is about sovereignty. The quiet sovereignty of a man who knows himself. The kind of man who can love without losing himself. The kind of man who can let go without breaking. The kind of man who no longer fears being alone because he has finally come home to himself.